Welcome, friends of the True Self. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for being present. And most of all, thank you for being interested in the discovery of your true self, of that dimension of yourself that is quiet, that is happy, that is intrinsically loving, that is at peace. And this dimension of self is already here and present in you. And it is an automatism that sets in when you discover that this dimension of self-consciousness can come to the foreground in your life and in your experience. And this is what this true shift then is actually about. It is a discovery that allows this to become your identity. And how this reshapes your life is that it what was in the foreground of your experience, your personality, your emotions, your your story, your whatever is happening, all appearances in life, they're usually always grasping our attention, and we are identified with them, and we are in these stories, and we are in all of them. And what is always at the background is consciousness, and is this dimension of self that is at peace, and that is resting, and that is quiet and still. And this transformation that occurs is that this, what is in the background, usually of your experience, comes to the foreground of your experience, and it reverses. So all appearances, what happens in your life, emotions, stories, they sort of fade to the background, and the shining presence of the self comes to the foreground. And so there's a real flip that happens for you, a real change in where your presence is predominantly invested in. Depending on that is what shines in your life. And one of the methods of awakening is to this that I'm giving a commentary on, is the Yogasutra. It is the philosophy of yoga that was actually about an encounter with consciousness, with who you are, until you realize that you are this consciousness. And he gives a lot of different methods how you can awaken to your true self, how you can awaken to this knowing, how you basically remember yourself truly. And one of the methods he gives was the divine self, to create a connection to that part of yourself, even if it is still a dual relationship, but to create a relationship with your higher self, with the part of you that knows. Now, this higher self, this divine self, your higher self, is already not so much in all of these stories. It is knowing. It is the one that actually orchestrates your life. It is already unbound. It is already free. You know this because there's a level of yourself that holds a different knowing. All of you that are watching, you know that there's a level of yourself that has a different knowing than the limited knowledge that you continuously actually have about your life, about yourself, about this universe, about reality. There's a different knowing that is unbound, and that's also not so much in all these stories and in all of your ideas of yourself. What marks the egoic construct is this continuous resistance to life as it is, to whatever happens, because it finds itself in what is happening. It defines itself through what is happening. It limits itself to what is happening. It finds excuses, and it finds the horror, and it finds all these definitions of what you are, or what is you in stories, in life, in what happens. Whereas you actually should find yourself in consciousness, in no longer the story, in no longer what is happening. None of it defines you. None of it is sort of you, actually. So it has a different relevance then for you. So Patanjali talks about creating this connection to your higher self, to your divine self. And he says, now this is over 2,000-year-old text. He says, one of the ways how you can understand or connect to this divine self, to higher understanding of yourself, is the syllable Om. Now, Om is a sacred syllable because it represents the four states of consciousness. And he also talks, Patanjali talks about not just reciting Om. Sanskrit is non-conceptual. So what these mantras can do for you is already actually allow you to evoke something, an understanding, a knowledge, an energetic field, a frequency that is non-conceptual. And in that way, it's already actually helping. It's not just helping because your focus of your mind starts to be focused on something sacred or something that is benevolent, something auspicious, but also because what it creates as an energetics is non-conceptual. It isn't, it already opens you up to some form of at least deeper understanding, deeper wisdom, deeper energetic, frequential wisdom. But what he says is not just recite Om, but also reflect on its meaning. So the most important part is the reflection on its meaning. So why is that? Om is addressing the absolute, and Om is representative of the four states of consciousness. The first one is your so-called waking state. It is how you walk about in life. It's actually also a dream state because your perceptions of this world make up what you think this world is like and make up who you think yourself to be. So you're actually already walking in a dream world, the dream world of your own making, of your own perception, of what you perceive this world is like, of your own filters. There's a continuous evaluation and definition according to your filters. That is the waking state. It is actually also that you at some point will awaken from that waking state, but as long as not, it seems really, really real. It seems really defining you. It seems really grasping you, holding you in some form. And then the second state is the dream state. It is already actually all these states. When you reflect about them, they can open you up to so much because in the dream state, the actual dream state, it's also that you are dreaming, you are having an experience, you feel that all of it is excessively real, what happens to you in a dream. But the next day when you wake up, it is all gone. You see all these happenings as as fundamentally empty, as not having really a grasp on you, as not having any relevance on you. And the actual waking state is the same. All these appearances, all these happenings, what we give so much credit to, what we define ourselves continuously as, what we feel is somehow giving an idea of our value, an idea of what we are. It's all not true. And then the third state is deep sleep. And we experience all of them because they are all reflective of one another. In deep sleep, you have no cognition of what is happening, and yet existence is present. Awareness is present. You as consciousness are still present. So you already also in deep sleep, it is a remembrance of the self. That's why in the ancient days they said, when you are in deep sleep, you return to consciousness because you're actually abiding as that, but you're not cognizant of it, but you are still existing. There is a part of you that still exists. It's just that you aren't conscious. You aren't conscious of that when you are in deep sleep. Now, Om has the fourth state. So it was the four states of consciousness. So the fourth one is just called like that, the fourth. The fourth is actually you abiding consciously as that. It means you are simply present. You are abiding as awareness. The fourth state is called like that because it is a moment of silence, a moment in which you're conscious and silent. So it means that there are no thoughts. That's why it is so relevant, because in a moment in which there are no thoughts, in which your mind is not not preoccupying your awareness, you can become aware of the presence that exists beyond the mind. That's why the fourth state is so important. And that's why in these ancient ways, how you chanted Om, you took a moment of silence. In all the Vedic chanting, when you chant Om, you're supposed to, after the Om, and the Om reflects also these different states, after the Om, you're supposed to be silent for a moment. This silence is meant to be a thoughtless moment, a moment of true silence, not where you are silent, thinking that I still wait like for 2 to 3 seconds, but in which you stop the mind, in which you adhere to your inner silence, to your inner self, and thus can become aware of what you truly are, this presence beyond thoughts. There's a moment in which you can detach from the mind. And so he gave that, and he gives now all in the following Yoga Sutras, he will give all these different methods of remembrance. It is one thing to understand, conceptually understand, mentally understand what you are consciousness, you are beyond the mind, you are awareness, all these things that you can conceptually then at least know or make a discrimination between what is the self, what is the non-self, what is the person, what is consciousness, to have already that kind of mental understanding. And then it is about finding a way how you come into the immediate experience of that. And that always actually involves a moment in which you detach from the mind, in which there is a gap between you and the mind, in which there is distance to the mind, and in which there is a true silence, a silence in which presence can become aware of itself. Awareness can become aware of itself. And so he says, in these sutras, he says, chant Om. When you chant Om, be aware of its meaning, of the different states of consciousness. Then you can come to know what is non-conceptual about you, what is not in the mind, what is no mind, what is beyond mind, and find yourself again in that. Remember yourself as that. And so this is one of the methods that he expounds upon, that he suggests to you, is chant Om, reflect on its meaning, these different states of consciousness, and find yourself in the silence after Om, and come to know yourself as that which is non-conceptual. Thank you. Namaste.